Do you have a favorite bench press warm up? Do I have a favorite bench press warm up? Yeah, no warm up. For myself, personally, I've tried about everything because I'm fucked up. I just say I'm fucked up. So my shoulders are fucked. I got a lot of things that are messed up. So I've tried to do a lot of warm up stuff. Nothing's really made that much of a difference except shoulder distractions. I like to use a club, whatever they call those things, training clubs, and just bend over and let my arm hang. And as I hold the weight at a certain point, it will start to relax. So the joint will start to open up. Then I'll start circles. That has by far been the best thing. And keep in mind with my my right shoulder, it's got all kinds of arthritis and bone spurs in there. So just that slight little bit of distraction is just enough to be able to help. And then a boatload of warm-up sets. And this hasn't changed, by the way. So when I'm talking about the warm-up sets on the bench press, this hasn't changed since since the day I walked into Westside the first time for the first bench training session. I'll bench the bar until I feel like I can go up to the next jump, which would be 95 pounds. Sometimes it might be 4 or 5 sets. Sometimes it might be 2, sometimes it might be 10. And then it could be a few different sets with 95 and a few sets I don't make that next jump up until I feel like I'm ready for that next jump up. So the sets are very heavy on the bottom end during the warm up and very light on the top end. So there's not a lot of reps that are being done on the heavy days, the max effort days. There's probably no more than 2, maybe 4 at the most reps over a 90% range based upon that day. And that's probably high for me. I try to keep it around 2. With a straight raw bench to my chest, I keep it at 1. But then if I put on, a slingshot or something like that, or go to a shoulder saver pad or any supportive type of aid, then to me that actually moves into the supplemental exercise and isn't really the bench anymore. But there may be 1 or 2 there too. So that's kind of where that variance is with that. When I tried to do all the warm-up stuff first, or when I was in a bodybuilding phase, training with John Meadows, for example, that was over a multi-year period of time. The bench press really wasn't even in the program that much, if at all. And if it was usually the 3rd or 4th exercise of the day. It didn't make any difference on how my joints felt, being if it was the 4th exercise or the 1st exercise. It probably felt a little worse being later in the program because of the other fatigue that was being accumulated. I'm answering this as it was asked, so what is it for me? What is it for other people? I don't know. That becomes very specific based upon the person. For example, let's say if somebody's max bench is 65 pounds, obviously they're not going to be doing 10 sets with the bar to warm up. So they're going to have to warm up other ways. So play around with it is what it comes down to. Sometimes do more warm-ups than what you think you need to do. See how that feels. Sometimes do less. Personally, I think you should be able to hit that max effort exercise for a maximum with a lot of warm-ups and with very few. I've done max effort exercises that consisted of a total of maybe 100 reps, right around there, including the warm-ups, from, say, I'm not going to count the body weight squats to the box, so I'll count those, including those. So that, then the bar, then kind of moving up from there. With that very same exercise and close to the exact same weight. So it's personally my main max effort exercise for lower body that I try to really push hard for no reason other than this, what I really like, is the reverse band spider bar. So personally, this is an exercise that I would talk about. Sometimes it may be all those warm-ups, like 100 total warm-up reps until I get to that max weight. Other times with the same max weight or a little within striking range of the same max weight, I've done a total of 5 reps. So that's the variance that I'm talking about that I think everybody should try to strive for. So I'm not going to sit here and say that you should be able to, just jump in and hit the max rep with no warm-ups, but you should be able to get there pretty quick if need be. The reason I've always kind of trained myself to be that way is when I was still competing, there were some meets that I might have had 15 minutes to be able to warm up. And now when you're talking about fucking putting briefs on and a suit on and all that other horse shit that we had to put on, that's maybe 1 or 2 sets. So it's like, fuck, you put your stuff on, take 315, take, 6 something, and then go with your opener. Worst case scenario, but you got to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Other times there was plenty of times for the warm up. So it's the same thing with the bench. There are a lot of times that I needed a lot of bench warm ups in a meet. There were other times where it was, 135 for 5, 225 for a single, put the shirt on and go open at 540. So that's something that you have to prepare yourself for. So getting back to the original question, I try to answer these in depth. That way I'm kind of covering all bases instead of just making one assumption on what this question's supposed to represent. Find a way to test both and test the extremes of both. If you do too few warm-ups, the weight's probably going to feel heavy, real heavy, if you do way too few. So when you start getting into your working weights, it's going to feel like crap. So you're going to know you need to do a little bit more. If you do too much, then the working sets are going to feel like crap. So you want to find what that balance is first. Then once you find out where that balance is, then you make the determination based upon, do you need more work capacity? Or is it, lifters that don't put in the required supplemental and accessory work after the main lift? So do you put that in front as part of the warm up just to kind of make sure it's getting done before the main stuff? Things like core work, torso work, ab work, whatever you want to call it, usually is one of those things that gets overlooked or skipped a lot. So you can put it in there as part of that warm up. Or if this is asking about specific exercises that need to be done, I'm laughing because it's like, well, what year are you talking about? What 2 years are you talking about? Because the popular warm-up exercises for 2021 and 2022 were different than the ones in 2020 and 2019. So they're trendy. People like to put out the perfect warm-up, and it's all trendy bullshit where it's just how the industry is. Some of the exercises are exercises that you haven't seen for 20 years. So then they reemerge, and it's the exercise everybody needs to be doing. It's like, well, if it was that fucking good, it wouldn't have went away after, it wouldn't have disappeared for 20 years in the first place. My point is, try different things, see what other people do, try them, see how it feels, go from that. The objective of training is to be able to figure out what works for yourself and kind of go from there.